upon the way that he wants his Manchester City team to play and the opposition that he's coming up against. So Foden, I agree. I thought he had the best game of the ones that are in that kind of 8 million bracket for City. But the threat of rotation and the potentially better the better investment options that you have available at City means I'd be spending the budget there and saving it and spending the slightly cheaper, more mid-price midfielder bracket elsewhere on the likes of Kulusevski at Spurs.
Mark, for this fixture this weekend, let's not forget Bournemouth actually won in game week 1, but a lot of people were already earmarking this fixture this weekend for Manchester City. Do we have to triple up? How many City players have you got going into this?
I'll be taking 3. I've got Walker, Cancelo and Haaland. I think, while we're all fearing the Haaland goals, I think we're also expecting a clean sheet for City, so I'm happy having Walker and Cancelo. They're not going to be providing any width based on what we saw at West Ham, so I'm actually debating whether Cancelo over the season is going to be a necessary pick, because going out wide, I was hoping he was going to provide service into Haaland. That doesn't look like that's going to be the case. He's going to spend a lot of time in midfield, so he may not be the kind of offering the attacking potential that he showed last season. But I'm happy for now holding the 2 City defenders. And I think Haaland is enough. I think it's very difficult to make a pick amongst the Foden, Grealish, Mahrez pack. They're playing wide and the emphasis is on getting service to Haaland. So I don't think there's any rush to try and find another attacking option in that City side. Because as you said, De Bruyne is costly and that means a lot of surgery on our teams to get him in.
I was with you on the deadline, wasn't I, Mark? We were at Fantasy Fest and I made a transfer with 20 seconds to go of the deadline. I think I got your trusty friend I panicked. But I panicked with this fixture in mind because I had Cancelo. I didn't have Haaland at that point, but I always had in my head that I was probably going to be doing Kane to Haaland, which I did. I actually brought in Kyle Walker. One of the mistakes I did make was that I left it so late, I didn't get him into my starting 11 for last week. So there was 6 points. 6 points I think he got. Yeah, that was stuck on the bench. But I've got him for this week, so I'm going in with the same 3. What about you guys? Jules, Sam, are you going into this fixture with 3?
I've got Walker and Haaland, so I keep 2 City players.
How did you feel about Cancelo, Jules? I know the jury was out in pre-season. I forgot to ask for an update on that.
Yeah, the number 7 still bothers me massively. I was at West Ham and I kept saying Cristiano Ronaldo or Eric Cantona, and I was like, Joao Cancelo, no, I don't think so. So until he changes his number, he can't be my team. No, I'm kidding. It's not just about the number. But Mark made a great point. He's going to play alongside Rodri in midfield all season, I think, or certainly as long as Haaland is in the team. And I think that will make him less of a threat going forward with the ball for City.
He's just a bonus points magnet as well, isn't he? He got 2 bonus once again. Sam, sorry, I interrupted them because I felt like the listeners needed to know if Jules had been persuaded that number 7 shirt looked good on Cancelo.
I mean, I thought it looked very good on Cancelo, so I'm really happy to own him. I have 3. I have Ederson, Cancelo, and now Haaland. So actually, I did really well out of the bonus point system in the game last weekend because Ederson also picked up a bonus point. So pleased with those 2. And I do feel like coming out of that game on Sunday, he said to me, do you regret going with Ederson over Walker because you could have saved yourself 0.5 million? But actually, I think longer term, I prefer having Ederson. I really liked what I saw from him and stability is really important in terms of my goalkeeper strategy. And I like the fact that I've just got Ederson sat there and I don't need to worry about him anymore.
Yeah, Ederson is nice. I would have liked to have had him, but I went with the Leicester goalkeepers and I'm now frantically refreshing every day on social media when I wake up to check that they haven't signed another goalkeeper. We've spoken there about quite a few premiums that we're all trying to squeeze into our teams, and gosh, we could even potentially be looking at Raheem Sterling if Jules is correct and he keeps playing through the middle for Chelsea. But that does mean that we also need some budget picks. We spoke about them in pre-season, and Sam, I think we have to start with Aston Villa because you picked out some really nice options for Steven Gerrard's side, but it was a really disappointing opening weekend for them.
Just did not see this one coming at all. For me, this was the surprise of game week 1. I really expected Aston Villa to get off to a good start. It was away at Bournemouth. Yes, I wasn't expecting Bournemouth to be as good as they were. And let's not take anything away from Bournemouth. It wasn't just that Villa were poor. Bournemouth were excellent in game week 1. And I think they kind of made us all stand up and go, oh, maybe there's some assets over there that I should look at that I've kind of avoided in pre-season. But from a Villa perspective, it wasn't necessarily the team that we were expecting. No Watkins in the starting 11. And players like Matt Cash and Leon Bailey, who had been very highly selected in pre-season, and I own both of them, just didn't really turn up. Now, when you look at the underlying stats for that game, it was Matt Cash who was the most advanced player in the Aston Villa team. He had 66 touches in the opponent's half, more than any other Villa player, and he received 26 passes in the final third, again, more than any other Villa player. Now, as a Matt Cash owner, obviously I'm delighted about that because it means he's in the right places. But it's also slightly worrying that their most advanced player is one of their defenders and they aren't getting enough service to those forward players. So it'll be interesting to see what Gerrard does. I'm not panicking on Villa because they are still nice, cheap budget options. I still think Leon Bailey and Matt Cash could be good picks moving forward. But I am definitely watching what happens with them in their first home fixture of the season in game week 2. If they don't perform again, those players could start to come under scrutiny because there were some other fantastic budget picks who did really well this week.
Yeah, there wasn't there? It's going to be interesting because Everton at home for them, they'll have to be targeting 3 points in that one. And I kind of look at it and I was asked for a prediction on this one the other day and I wouldn't know which way, who's going to come out on top in this because it's two teams very much in transition, isn't it, Jules?
Yeah, it is. Although I think Villa at home, I think Steven Gerrard would have shouted really, really loud after that defeat at Bournemouth. And you would expect a reaction massively from Villa, especially for their first home game of the season. And I think for Everton, they will struggle. At Villa as well, I think they might struggle all season. To be fair, what we saw against Chelsea was not, I know they don't have a striker, but nothing special. Even with the new signings, with Onana and more will come, I still think it's difficult for them. So I would expect Cash, Bailey, even Ings and Watkins, whoever you own from Villa, to be much, much better this weekend, to have a really good reaction, to get points, clean sheets. I mean, there's the Tyrone Mings issue, but I expect a big reaction from Villa and much, much better performance. And then they've got Palace and West Ham before it gets harder with Arsenal and City. So you would expect them to be good for the next 3 games for sure.
Well, Mark, Jules needs the budget players to perform because he's got a fair few of them in there to fit around his premium picks.
He must have.
He's manifesting, isn't he, that they do well because he needs them to, otherwise he's going to literally have a 4-player team, I think, of his premiums. Any other budget players that you've kind of got on your radar, Mark, or that you think could be good for this week and going forward?
Yeah, I mean, Andres Pereira, I think I went for a 4-4-2 and I went Pereira as a budget pick in midfield. And after about 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, I'm pleased I did that because I think he really stood out in that Fulham performance. He was playing in the number 10 role, vacated by Carvalho's move to Liverpool, and he was integral to everything they did. Mitrovic was obviously key, but Andreas buzzing around him was really eye-catching. He was on set pieces as well, and that's always great. So as a 4-5 option, that's everything you want. You know, he's an attacking player, taking set pieces. When you need to call him off the bench, he's going to offer you the potential for some attacking points, and that's all we can ask. Elsewhere, Josh Da Silva got his goal off the bench. He was someone touted as a possibility as a 4-5 midfielder. He had a very good season in the Championship promotion run, injured a lot last season, obviously caught the eye of a fantastic goal. I think the problem there is Dansgaard's come in the last few days for Brentford, and we'd expect him to work his way into the side in the number 10 role. So is there a place for Da Silva? If we see him break into the starting 11, I think we've got 2 excellent 4-5 midfielders that are going to be difficult to resist, to be honest.
You know, the thing, maybe this season that will be very exciting, and it's only 1 game, so we need to wait a little bit, but there might not be bad teams this season in the Premier League. You know, last season you wouldn't have got nowhere near, no offense to Norwich, but Norwich player, that kind of stuff. Now you look at Fulham, you look at Bournemouth and Forest that Mark knows really well, and they will be better once the new signings have all gelled in, and I think the team is ready, and they all kind of know each other. And you look at those teams, and there's players there that will do well. Those 3 teams will do well, and I think that changes the game a little bit because before there are teams that you would not have picked any players from them. Now I think it's a bit different because there might not be any bad teams at all this season in the Premier League.
And when we have a little look at the 4.0 defenders, those are the ones that we look for, right? We go into game week 1 and we're trying to pick out who is going to be our 4.0 million defender of choice. And we had 2 playing in game week 1 that I thought were both really nice options. Obviously, there was Williams at Forest, who, yes, all right, he didn't return points, but he played really well in that game. And when you watch the game, he was attacking, he was in good positions. So don't be put off by the fact that they conceded a couple and he didn't get any points. He could still return at points over the course of this season. And actually, I thought Forest defended really well for a large chunk of that game against Newcastle, and they really, really frustrated. On the flip of that, you also had Nathan Patterson at Everton, who we were talking about in pre-season, and Jules was waxing lyrical about on a podcast a couple of weeks back. He was excellent as well. And whilst Everton had no real attacking threat in that game, they defended well, actually, against Chelsea. And it took a penalty to take away that clean sheet. So I won't panic about him either. I think both of them. And if you do want to go with a team like Jules's, where it's full of all of these star premiums.
Superstars, you mean? Yeah, superstars.
Yeah, exactly. Superstar Jules's team. Then you're going to need these budget picks. And those two 4.0 defenders are perfect for that because they're playing, well, they seem to be. Anyway, let's see if they start game week 2. But I'm expecting both of them to play regularly.
Jules, Sam, I know we always say we have to be nice to our guests that come on, but you two are sucking up a bit too much to Nottingham Forest there. For people that are listening to this that maybe don't know, Mark is a Forest fan, a long-suffering Forest fan. What are you going to say, Jules?
No, just that Mark had a rubbish week at FPL. Then Forest lost as well. We just wanted to be nice to him. He's in his shed.
Bring me on.
You know,
Bring me on.
It's a Thursday morning.
Yeah, outrageous.
Mark, let's just have a little stock check though on Forest because people will look at that result at Newcastle on the face of it and say, newly promoted team, oh, what's the hype about? They're not going to be very good. You've got Brennan Johnson in your team. You nearly persuaded me at the deadline to bring him in. Alas, I saw sense. But how are you feeling about Forest from an FPL point of view, using your head over your heart? If you can.
Again, I'd like to point out, Kelly, I did say get Mitrovic, but, don't worry, it's fine. But yeah,
again, you didn't bring him in though. Yeah, exactly.
No, I couldn't afford him. Brennan will be on penalties for Forest. He's going to be the goal threat, I think. And we've got West Ham at home. The occasion at the City Ground on Sunday is going to be absolutely tremendous, very emotional. And I saw last season how the City Ground crowd can carry that team to results. Although on paper that's a tough game, I think the 12th man's going to be a factor, and I think we could get something from that game. We are probably the team in transition more than any other team in the Premier League because we've got so many new players. We might even have another new player in before Sunday. We're being linked to a lot of players. It's going to take 5 or 6 weeks to get any kind of momentum going because of the transition we're going through. So I'm being patient, but we have got good individuals. Nico Williams is a great player. He's going to be integral to the way we play. Jesse Lingard we've spoken about, of course, and Brennan's a secret at the moment to some extent, but he's not going to be for very long. I think his end product is his key talent, and I think it won't be long before we see a killer pass or more likely a clinical finish that will make people take notice.
Wouldn't surprise me to see Forest get something out of this game on Sunday.
Yeah,
honestly, I think wasn't that impressed by West Ham. All right, they were playing against Man City, and that's a difficult game, but I thought that West Ham looked like they were a bit at sea in that match at the weekend. And I think Forest, like Mark says, at home, first Premier League game, they are going to be highly up for it. And those fans are going to be fully charged. And I think they might get a result against West Ham at the weekend.
The sucking up continues. Let's talk about transfers now and our plans for the coming week. Myself, Sam and Mark have all made the Haaland transfer. I'm presuming, guys, no one's planning on a -4 going into game week 2, Mark?
No, not taking hits at this stage. I am partial to an early hit, but not yet. And I think obviously with the wild card in mind for probably between game weeks 5 and 6, I've got to try and stay patient. The key transfer as me was moving one Spurs to a City asset. It could have been Son to De Bruyne, but I think Kane to Haaland was the right one. And I think elsewhere in my lineup, I'm okay with the team. I like it, and I've got to give it time. I picked those players for a reason, and I've got to give them more game weeks. So I think Kane to Haaland was the obvious transfer, and I'm happy with the rest of the 11.
Mark, we know quite a lot about Sam and Jules' teams from the previous podcasts we've done. Can you quickly run us through some of the rest of your team, just so listeners are up to speed with where you're at?
Yeah, so at the weekend, I'll be starting with Ramsdale in goal. I've got Cancelo, Trent, Robertson and Walker. So basically, my defence is purely Liverpool and City. Midfield of Son, Diaz, Saka, Martinelli, and up front Haaland and Johnson. So in that team, I look at Brennan as the only kind of risk there. Everyone else is an established name in fantasy and in their team. It's made up of a core of 3 City players, 3 Liverpool players, and 3 Arsenal players. So it's strong in terms of the players in there and the teams that they're from. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's just the differentials have got to come in for me. Diaz, Saka, these are players who surprisingly don't have high ownership, but are exceptional players. So I'm just hoping it falls for me this week.
You also said to me last week that you weren't going for Gabriel Jesus because you felt the other Arsenal attacking options could outscore them. 1 week in, it's early to go, but I texted you after, didn't I? Because I said you've kind of been proven right.
Yeah, I think, neglecting Saka is a surprise. I understand why everyone went to Jesus pre-season because of the goals that he scored, but Saka, it looks like, is going to be on penalties as a first choice. It might rotate to Martinelli, but Saka's their best player, I think, still. I mean, Jesus has made an impact, but I think Saka was their best player last season. I expect him to kick on this season and improve again. And if he does that, he's going to be valued at 8 million. So given they're the same price and that Saka gets the extra point for clean sheets and goals, I think for me, he gets the nod. And Jesus is always going to it's going to get to 70 minutes and Nketiah is going to be on the bench and Nketiah is going to get some minutes. And you'd think that Jesus off and Nketiah, as we saw at Selhurst Park, is going to be the obvious substitution.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, guys. I did a little bit of a monologue there with Mark, but I was just giving the listeners what they wanted. I thought everyone wants to know Mark's makeup of his team, given his history in FPL. Jules, what about your transfer plans? Are you going to be doing anything, given the fact that your team sounds pretty well set already?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with the team. The good thing about the team, I've got 10 of my 11 starters who are playing home games, which I think is very it's important. This is better. So I like the fact that Nico Williams is going to come. I think I'm going to start him for this game because I believe that he can do something well this weekend. So yeah, no, I'm happy with the team. And then that means next week I'll have 2 free transfers in case I want to change something.
Oh, Sam, I get envy. I hate using a transfer going into game week 2 because I love the idea that in game week 3 you can properly have a tinker. You can make those couple of transfers.
Do you want me to I can share with you if you want.
Possible,
I'm that kind,
No, even if that was possible, I know you'd offer me it and then say, no, actually, I'm not doing it. But it's not possible. Sam, are you all set? How's your team looking?
I think I'm set, yeah. I wasn't opposed. And I said on our stream on Sunday evening that whilst I'd made a transfer already, and I normally hate doing that going into game week 1, protecting team value is really important at this point of the season. I knew I wanted to go for Haaland at some point. Kane was going to drop in price. Haaland was going to rise in price. So it made absolute sense to do it early. But I also wasn't absolutely set that was going to be my only transfer. Although I really don't like taking a -4 this early on in the season, I would have done it had something massively kind of turned up during the course of the week. Had there been a new signing, had there been a key injury in training, had there been some team news that said there was a problem with one of my bigger players, I'm still not opposed to taking another hit. But at the moment, I do feel like my team looks nice. Lots of home fixtures in there. 3 City in there, 3 Liverpool in there. And those are the 2 big teams I think you want to target this week. I don't have any Spurs at the moment, which for me is highly unusual. But I'll rectify that going into game week 3.